Hey guys, Static here with an updated PvP build for the Clockwork City patch. This is a very unique double dual wield Magicka Warden build. This is Extinction 2.0. This build is the result of extensive testing and theory crafting. And though it's a very grind heavy setup and the gear is not easy to obtain, I believe this to be the most well-rounded and balanced setup I have found on the Magicka Warden. The damage this build puts out is still great. Slightly toned down from the glass cannon setup we ran in Horns of the Reach, but now it's paired with much more healing and much more sustain, both of which were lacking in the previous iteration of this build. As always, I encourage you to change what you find lacking when following my builds to match your needs and playstyle. I'll mention some different options for what I've found helpful in certain situations, but ultimately the choice is yours, so take this build and make it your own. We're still a high elf as it is the best choice for damage and sustain, but a Breton, dark elf, or even an Argonian would be fine as well. Let's get right into the stats. Our Magicka is sitting over 40k, which is quite a bit lower than our previous setup, which ran Necropotence to put us over 50k, but we are gaining our damage in other ways to make up for that loss. Our HP is about 22k in PvP, that reaches about 23.5k with our Warden Maturation passive, which I feel is right about where you want to be. If you feel like you need a bit more, just drop a few points into health, but I haven't needed to. The stamina is over 12k, which is what I would consider to be the bare minimum to work with for PvP on a Magicka class, as you need to be able to dodge and break free in those key moments. Recovery is pretty good at just under 1900 with a pot taken and almost 2200 on our back bar, but this will be much higher with a proc, which we'll touch on more when we get to the gear. Our health recovery sucks as we're a stage 4 vampire, that's kind of expected, and our stam recovery is just enough that we can break free and dodge roll when we need to. Our buffed spell damage is a very healthy, consistent 3350 on both bars, which can be buffed to 3765 with a light attack on our damaging bar. Crits at 42% on our front bar due to Inner Light granting Major Prophecy, and 32% on the back bar, which you could run Prophecy on a potion if you choose to retain that 42% on both bars. Penetration is just under 14k, which is where a lot of our damage comes from. And I find this to be about the sweet spot. You could run more points into CP or change your Mundus to gain more, but I find it to be a bit overkill. Our buffed resistances aren't crazy at 23% reduction on spell damage and 20% on physical, but your resists are kind of irrelevant while you have a shield active, which while we're being pressured, we will try and keep up. If it does drop, we have 1800 critical resistance for almost 27% reduction to critical damage. I run Apprentice for maximum benefit to both damage and healing, but I really encourage changing this to whatever you find lacking. Atronach for more sustain, Mage for bigger shields, Lover for even more damage but no increase to healing. In the end, I find Apprentice to be the best all-around choice. I still like to run Immovables with health and Magicka to help counter burst damage. But as I said before, you could swap over to Prophecy over the health if you want 10% more crit chance on your heal bar. And as always, I always like to keep the Immovables with stealth detection handy when I see a Nightblade lurking in stealth. Food is Clockwork Citrus Fillet, or if you can't afford that, just go with the Witch Mother's Potent Brew. Now for the gear, this is where things get interesting. I've tried to theory craft to get the absolute most out of the sets I chose to run. I have found myself underwhelmed with monster sets on a Mag Warden because since Morrowind release, our dot counted as direct damage and wouldn't proc Scoria, which would be my #1 choice. However, it's been a very long time coming, but with the upcoming Dragon Bones release, we are finally seeing this bug fixed. Swarm and its morphs will count as a dot and proc dot-oriented sets. It's about damn time. I'll be trying Scoria next patch, you can count on that. Our first set, and the only one carried over from the original build, is Spinner. It's just a great, non-complicated set that adds straight damage. No waiting for procs, no stipulations, it just works. A one-handed sharpened sword used to take ages to farm, or at least 300k gold to obtain. But nowadays, with trait change, you can just get yourself a one-handed sword for cheap with any trait and just make it sharpened. Believe it or not, this sharpened spinner sword is the easiest sword to get on this build. With the way this build was forming, I found myself needing a strong 4-piece set. Martial Knowledge came to mind as it provides good spell damage, which is a good overland alternative that you can buy on the open market, but it just didn't quite fit the build right. What will complement Spinners, which is a penetration based set, the most? Flame Blossom. More penetration. I don't even want to think about how long it took me to get this sword. I ran Bloodroot Forge multiple times a day. It was the bane of my existence for over a month. But with the help of my PvE guild, it finally dropped, and now my front bar is complete. Make it Nirnhoned. With the recent buff to Nirnhoned, it is the best in slot on main hand for dual wield applications for damage. However, if I end up liking a monster set in this next patch, I'll be trading Flame Blossom in for a 2-piece monster set and probably 2-piece willpower, as it gives 150% efficiency on its 2-piece set bonus. So, for our back bar, I wanted to use a set that would benefit us while on our defensive bar, but also be able to carry that benefit over to the front bar when you need to turn the tables on your opponent. I ran Sword and Board on this bar for a while, and that worked okay, but I found the extra resist and blockability from Sword and Board didn't really apply here. I was using a ward on this bar, and resist don't matter while your shield is up. This is when I went a little crazy and decided that my defensive set also needed to be dual wield, as it's the only way I would be gaining substantial healing over Sword and Board. And man, was I right, you feel the difference. I had to go farm not one, but 2 one-handed swords of the Lich. This set is exactly what we needed. Sustain has always been a problem with the original Extinction build, and it would typically be the reason that we would die. This changes everything. Now for 20 seconds per minute, this can proc for insane recovery. Proccing Lich with a pot taken results in over 4k recovery for 20 seconds. Almost 4100 on the back bar. That's enough to out-sustain your opponent and turn the fight in your favor. It's a must-have set. After thoroughly testing, Nirnhoned is actually best in slot for healing as well as damage, with powered on the offhand. The healing on this bar is pretty strong, and it's all because we went for dual wield over Sword and Board. We're still running full spell damage and chance on our jewelry, as Lich provides us with all the sustain we need, and tri-stats and impen all around. I always encourage running the tri-stats. They are expensive, but they have 150% efficiency over any other glyph. We need the HP because we aren't running any heavy armor. We want to gain the Magicka as much as possible at the same time, so why not get some free stamina while we're at it? You won't be proccing your weapon enchantments all that often, so even though they share a cooldown, I go with Berserk on both swords on the front bar, so no matter which one swings, you'll get your buff. Same goes with the back bar, but in the opposite direction. While we are trying to mitigate damage, a quick light attack will weaken the enemy, causing them to deal less damage. Neither of these weapon enchants make or break this build, as you are ranged most of the time. Now on to the skills. Not a lot has changed here from the original build. In fact, the front bar is exactly the same. We have 4 animal companion abilities for 2% increased damage done per skill. Growing Swarm is our dot. We have the birds that you still can't dodge, Shulks, and Bird of Prey. That's 8% total damage from animal abilities, 8% extra on our minor Berserk buff on Bird of Prey, 5% increased damage and healing done from dual wielding swords, for a total of 21% increased damage done on this bar. Inner Light and Northern Storm are chosen for a combined increased maximum Magicka on this bar of 15%. It's just the best skill loadout for the most damage possible. The only change on the back bar is the utilization of Corrupting Pollen. With points into Befoul, this is an AoE Defile, inflicting your enemies with 43% less health recovery and healing received while standing in it, and for 4 seconds after leaving it. If they re-enter, then 4 seconds is refreshed. This is a great skill, not only offensively but defensively. Put it down, and 6 seconds later you're getting a huge burst heal. I use this to turn the fight. Place it down, turtle in it for a bit, and then swap bars and turn the fight. You just got a huge burst heal right as you turn pressure to them and their healing is cut in half. Pollen is great in group play as well, as it defiles whole teams. Having this in group as you dump ults is a game changer. Typically in organized enemy groups you'll find a bunch of healers in the back spamming the Breath of Life button. This greatly reduces their effectiveness and helps your damage outweigh their healing. These guys will also be wearing Earth Core, so don't worry, there's still plenty of cancer to go around, but this certainly helps things. Earth Core does soak up one ground-based enemy effect, but the good news is you can just put your pollen right back down and ensure that Defile stays on the group. Ice Fortress gives us major resist, which we don't really need while we have a shield up, but minor protection does make our shields take 8% less damage. Blue Betty is for sorcery and a free purge of one negative effect. Dampen Magic is the strongest shield available to us and is even larger than before because we are in 7 light. And Living Trellis is our main spammable heal with healing over time as well. Meteor is our damage ultimate that we cast and then swap to the front bar before it hits to gain the bonuses of our offensive sets. Lastly, let's look at the CP. I want to explain something first. As we all know, ZOS introduced jump points for CP, which means you won't gain another % increase until you reach the next full percent. If you're at 9.99, you do not get 10% benefit, but only 9, as it will always round down. But a little known fact is, if your CP takes you to a flat percentage, such as 72 points in the Master at Arms will give exactly 23%, you actually don't get 23%. You get rounded down to 22% because the way the game counts it is 22.999 repeating, not 23%. You must spend the one extra point to get over a percentage that you're aiming for. So we want our 23% into Master at Arms. Most of what we do is direct damage. 6% for our shattering blows. On shielded targets, we want to have a little extra penetration to synergize well with our offensive sets. 10% on our regular Magicka damage. 20% bigger crits. We have a decent crit rate, so it's nice to go into there. We have 5% increased healing done. We didn't have anything into healing on the old setup, so the healing capabilities of this setup is quite noticeable. 10% decreased dodge roll, 44% for our, this is for our corrupting pollen, for our Defile. This used to be 75 points, now it's 76 because we found out we have to go past that 14% mark to get the 14. A little bit into stam recovery to help us dodge roll and whatnot. Decreased sprint cost and at least 15% for break free. That's very important. Here we have an extra 5% for healing taken, so that's just even more healing. We want to go pretty heavily into our Bastion. We only have the one shield, so we want to make it as big as possible. We have 2 points here just because they couldn't go anywhere else. These percentages do apply to taking decreased damage on our shields, so just keep that in mind. I do a little more into Elemental Defender because we are a vampire, so we're going to be taking extra fire damage, so we want to mitigate that slightly. 5% less on dots and 20% and 19% into Ironclad for direct damage taken. Thanks for checking out the build, guys. I've been maining Magicka Warden in PvP for quite some time now, and I really enjoy this particular setup more than anything I've tried, and I've tried a lot of combinations. If you can stand the intense grinding for this hard-to-get gear, it is well worth it, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. As always, if you liked the build and would like to see more, like and subscribe, ask me questions in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I appreciate the support. I'll see you guys later and catch you next time.